Welcome in to the Late Night Gamecock Show. My name is Matt Anderson. Joining me as always is Rob Williams of Four Quarter Friday on 3, Gamecock Central, The Big Spur. Pretty much SEC Sunday nights. So Rob, we didn't have a show last night. I know that you did have SEC Sunday nights, I believe.
We did. We talked College World Series. Obviously, Oklahoma is still there. That's getting going right now. And then we also got into out of conference schedules for the SEC teams and looked at some of the ones towards the top, not as much as the ones who schedule a little lighter this year, but that's just one of those things, Matt. And when we start talking about Gamecock schedules around here, I think everybody's a little thankful when there's a little bit of a lighter out of conference slate.
Hey man, sign me up for that. If they're going to 9 SEC games, which they have, and whatever the future holds, covering the Gamecocks is a lot easier when you got two should be wins on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as long as the playoff committee continues to act the way that they do, I said last night, as long as they continue to follow this criteria, but they don't even follow the written criteria. So as long as they continue to showcase the same behaviors, teams should schedule light, because it doesn't do you any good to schedule heavy, because even if you beat them, it's basically a zero-sum game, and if you lose,
it's everything.
Then you're done. Yeah. So I don't know what the option is there. I think that you just kind of have to go with it, even if it makes you look like you're not scheduling quality competition.
It is what it is. But again, no show last night. Normally we are live on Sunday nights at 7 p.m., but we wanted to give all the dads out there time with the family, time to do whatever they needed to do. So Rob, I found this out recently, and I'm going to quiz you. Can you guess the top 10 holidays celebrated in the United States each year by amount of people that celebrate it?
Okay. And full disclosure, speaking of dad activities, I was just with my kids in the pool and at the pond fishing, so I have not looked at this. I don't know. Is this on your notes? I don't know. Let's see if I can figure it out. So you're actually quizzing me right now. Let's go.
No, this is a live quiz.
Christmas.
Yeah, number 1.
Thanksgiving.
Number 2.
Halloween.
3.
The 4th of July.
That is 8th.
New Year's Eve.
Okay, that's 6.
So I've gotten 5 of them.
Yep.
Easter.
Easter is number 4.
Okay, Mother's Day.
Number 5.
So I'm up to 7. Is Father's Day on the list?
Father's Day is number 10.
Okay, that actually tracks. I think that makes sense for me.
So we want to give the dads love. Yeah, the ones you're missing, Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course. Please tell me that one of them is like Labor Day or Memorial Day.
No. So the full list is Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, Easter, Mother's Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, 4th of July, Valentine's Day, and then all the way at the bottom is Father's Day. So we wanted to give the fathers their day yesterday.
Yeah, the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day being counting twice is the trick of that list. Yeah, that's crazy. My personal favorite holiday, especially if my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving, but if we're going outside the major holidays, Matt, then I'm definitely going with Labor Day, because that's my favorite weekend. Get near the water in some form or fashion, a grill, and opening weekend of college football. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Labor Day's tops for me too. If we get away from like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, that kind of stuff. When I was in college, I loved Halloween, but Halloween's a lot different nowadays.
Yeah.
But we got a lot to get to tonight. The basketball roster is set. We're going to talk about that. Obviously, there was a big football official visit weekend, so we will talk about those guys that were on campus. Baseball, man. I mean, it seems like every time I get on thebigspur.com, Gamecock Central, Jamie Bradford is dropping some kind of nugget on the baseball program. And
if you want those nuggets, it's just $1. Just $1. You can go get all those baseball nuggets yourself. We're not going to give them all away here. Might give you the 4-piece kids meal, but we're not going to give away all the nuggets. This is not a 20-piece, ladies and gents.
Yeah, $1. That's the best deal on the internet right now. It's better than Prime Day that's coming up. So you get 2 months of, think about 2 months of Gamecock Central, the Big Spur coverage. But so baseball is just going crazy right now. We'll touch on that. Softball lost 8 players to the transfer portal, but so far they have 7 portal commitments, and their class is number 4 in the country, according to some outlets. It's headlined by Florida Atlantic outfielder Bella Foran. Foran, how do you pronounce that? Do you know, Rob?
I don't. I was actually on ITG today, and Jamie did the same thing. So
Okay.
I'm not sure we have pronunciation guide yet. I'm sure that he will have Ashley on the hook at some point, and we can ask her specifically, how do you pronounce that?
Yeah, for sure. But she's and I didn't know softball had this, but softball has Gold Glove. So she's a Gold Glove winning left fielder. She had outs on 42 of 43 opportunities last year and hit 342 in the leadoff role at Florida Atlantic, and has 2 years left in the program. And then Tennessee outfielder Sevilla Morgan hit 340 as a freshman, stole 25 bases on 32 attempts, and she was the number 10 overall high school player just last year. So those are the 2 headliners in the softball class. Again, we said it's number 4 in the country. And don't forget about shortstop Aspen Boulware. She graduated early. She is by far the best high school prospect that Gamecock softball has ever signed. She's ranked number 5 in the class right now, but she was the runaway number 1 if she had stayed in her grade. So a lot of big things happening for softball, Rob. And, we talked about it, where are the Gamecocks just right on track and they were just a year early on the super regional and potentially, going to the college softball World Series. But look, Ashley Chastain Woodard has it rolling.
Absolutely. We've talked about Aspen Boulware on Four Quarter Friday at length because she was at Gray Collegiate right here in the state. Obviously, for anyone who does not know, Florida State football player Michael Boulware and Florida State softball legend Jessica Vanderlinden are her parents. So Michael Boulware played 5 seasons in the NFL. Jessica Vanderlinden is widely known as one of the greatest in softball history, and so it's in her genes. And then also, Gray Collegiate didn't lose a game all year this year, like wire to wire, undefeated. I think it was 3 state championships in a row, something like that. So she knows a little something about winning too. So that brings a little extra flair to the table when she steps on the board. It's not just the tools that she has. I think that it's going to be a mental thing with Aspen Boulware as well.
Yeah, and just a huge win for Gamecock softball. We got to give a quick shout out to Mike Boynton. He is now the interim head coach at Michigan after Dusty May left for the Dallas Mavericks. I got to listen to just a bit of you and Jamie earlier today, and literally when I got called to do something else,
it broke while we were on the air.
Yeah, y'all had just started talking about it. Look, it's so interesting to me that Dusty May is leaving Michigan coming off a national championship at this point in the offseason. But it's just one of those things that you're going to see more and more in college basketball specifically. It's just a 365-day-a-year job. Dusty May is on the record as saying he didn't have time to celebrate the national championship because the way that the calendar works in men's college basketball, the portal opened at midnight. So he literally won national title. He had to decide if he wanted to go spend time with his wife and family and assistant coaches and their families and celebrate, or get on a Skype call with the prospect to make sure they can reload for next year. So, man, he's off to the NBA. Mike Boynton's going to get his opportunity. Former Gamecock basketball player. I was a ball boy for Mike Boynton. And obviously, former assistant coach at South Carolina, former head coach at Oklahoma State, and the defensive mastermind behind Michigan's defense. So we'll see how many guys stick around for him. Hopefully he has a great roster next year and he can get shot at the full-time gig.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that jumps out to me, obviously, Michigan has limited options here. I think they made the right decision. I think they made the best decision for their program. We've seen this situation, Matt, and this is what I said with Jamie earlier, is that we've seen a couple of late moves in college basketball in the past few years. It's almost to the point that I would call it a trend with Bruce Pearl leaving late and handing the keys over to Stephen Pearl. Obviously, Virginia had a situation where Tony Bennett was stepped away late in the process. So, this isn't even quite as late as that was. And this is a different reason because he's taking an NBA job. The most interesting thing to me is the fact that the Mavericks went down to the college level to pluck their coach, because that's been outside of the trend in the NBA in recent years. You haven't had as much of that as you get like retread hires or NBA assistants, or even JJ Redick fresh off an NBA career in the prime of his podcasting career. So you just never know. I think this could be beneficial, but they're definitely shaking it up a little bit by going and grabbing Dusty May. But you're right. Michigan sets up for Boynton really well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Actually, the last head coach in college basketball that went to the NBA straight from college was a Michigan coach. John Beilein went to coach the Cavs and didn't last long.
Nope.
John Shire turned that job down. But I think, to your point, Rob, what you're going to see in this sport is the older coaches that have kind of made their money, they're not going to stick around and do this much longer. The younger guys that get the opportunity to go coach, in the NBA, remember, there's only 30 of those jobs available. So they're really hard to get.
Yep.
But the coaches are getting kind of sick of it. But do want to give a couple shout outs. Jay Diz is in here. Appreciate you, Jay Diz. You never miss a show. I know you got the notifications set up, so we really appreciate it. Rob, before we get to the main juicy parts of the show tonight.
I love the juicy parts. Continue.
I don't know if you are a big video game guy, but really the only video game I play every summer is college football, since it came back out in 25, and I will buy it again this year. But interesting enough, they're kind of leaking some stuff from the game, some gameplay stuff, but they did release the top 20 toughest road environments in the game this year, and South Carolina is 16th overall. Some familiar foes that are ahead of the Gamecocks this year are LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, Clemson, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Texas, and Auburn. And I know that we don't have, probably 100% of people watching this show that play the game, but the Gamecocks do travel to 4 of those environments this year in Alabama, Florida, Oklahoma, and Clemson. And, all those other teams have to come to Williams-Brice. So, Rob, does that list seem right to you? Do you think LSU, Georgia, Bama, Florida, Tennessee, Clemson, A&M, Oklahoma, Texas, and Auburn should be ahead of the Gamecocks when it comes to home field advantage?
No, that's an easy answer. I think that you can put LSU up there for sure. I will tip my cap to Tennessee, Texas A&M, even Oklahoma and Texas. The questions come in. I think that Georgia and Alabama, it almost depends on the day, and it depends on the game time.
And the opponent.
And the opponent, for sure, because they've had so much success that it almost takes a little bit out where they don't feel like they have to be up, as opposed to South Carolina, who, frankly, Matt, feels like they need to be up for everything.
Yeah.
The ones that are really like Clemson, do I really need to speak on? Florida and let's see, there was one more that kind of flashed to me, but I'll stick to the Gators here. I think that it's kind of a pendulum swing with them. That one can be really down. It can be really up. And that one could I feel like Alabama and Georgia kind of level out. They're going to land top 10. It just is what it is. But then there's places like Ben Hill Griffin in the swamp that I think can really make a swing one way or another. So that one seems a little fishy to me. And then I definitely have some questions. I've been to my share of Clemson games. I just don't know how I feel about it.
Clemson, it's different now. I mean, I've been to some rowdy Clemson night games, and they used to be really loud. They're just not as much anymore. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the main topics here, Rob. The basketball roster is set. The latest signees, we'll go through them here really quick. But Hugo Lopez, Matthias Alisanko, Nasir Hines, and Ford Wilder is coming in as a walk-on guard. The highlight here, and it kind of sucks for Gamecock fans because it's a highlight that's not going to really play next year. But Matthias Alisanko is probably the top prospect in Brazil right now. He's 6'8", 6'9", 235 pounds, but he's not going to play next year because he just tore his ACL in May. So this was a guy that I know had been on the Gamecocks radar for a little bit. The ACL tear definitely played a factor in, do we go ahead and take this guy? Do we go ahead and put him on the roster, let him rehab here, redshirt? He'll still have 4 years of eligibility after this, but this is a really good get. And before he went down with the ACL tear, Rob, I mean, he probably would have been a guy that could have started for South Carolina next year and been exactly what they needed. His dad was a 3-time NBB champion, and he's one of the league's all-time leading rebounders. His mom played volleyball. He's dominated Spanish youth basketball for his entire career, from age 14 on, essentially. Earned all tournament honors at the 2025 Adidas Next Gen Munich event, won the Rising Star Award at the 2025 Adidas Eurocamp, and he's also been a part of the NBA PA Top 100 camp. This is a kid who made his debut on Brazil's senior national team at age 16, the youngest to ever do it in Brazil. He's a high IQ player. If you watch him, he plays with poise and pace. I did look into some scouting reports on him. I wanted to see what other people have said, not just my eyes. And this was kind of like the consensus that I found. But high IQ, floor vision. He can make the advanced reads that you need to keep the ball moving, which Lamont Paris loves. But the thing that I loved about him is he's 6'8", 6'9", but he averages more than 3 assists per game. He just played an overtime elite last year. He can score inside and out. His game is going to translate to high major basketball, especially in Lamont Paris' system. And then some scouts think he can be an NBA player in a couple of years. It's kind of a connector piece when it comes to filling out a roster and kind of a Swiss Army knife. Last year in overtime elite, he did average 8.7 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 3.2 assists, and 1 block per game. Shot 47.9% from the field and 36.4% from three. So not going to see him this year, but Rob, just going through that scouting report and what you've heard about him, what you know about him, tell us what you think about the player.
The biggest thing that jumps out is the IQ for me and the pace, because these are things that you have to play in a Lamont Paris offense, Matt. And the measurables are a great complement to that. But the starting place for me is always going to be what the IQ and the poise of these players is in terms of how they can respond to pressure, like ball pressure, and still be able to read and react based on what they're seeing and make smart basketball decisions. That is so beneficial in a Lamont Paris offense. And if you have a guard or a forward or whatever the case may be that has all of the size and athleticism in the world, but can't respond under the pressure, the ball pressure, then you can't get into your action. And that's what happened with Zach Davis. If I'm not trying to call somebody out, but that's what we've seen. That the length was there, the athleticism was there. And as his role increased and teams started to pick up 3/4 court, full court pressure, whatever the case may be, to turn some of these guards over, that was the problem. So to see a player who is going to be able to understand what's going on. And the other thing, Matt, is it does suck that he's not going to be on the floor this year, but I can spin that pretty positively, because that means that you should theoretically keep this guy around. You shouldn't just be rehabbing him to send him off somewhere in the portal, right? Now, I know people are going to say that. That's going to be the concern or the question already. If the team this year has enough success to keep Lamont Paris and staff in the fold, then I think that he becomes a key contributor to taking things to the next level in, what would that be, 27, 28?
Yeah, and I think this we'll talk more about the roster makeup and all of that here in a little bit, and if Lamont Paris can get back to the NCAA tournament. But I did see that Jay Diz asked, he talked about the Venezuelan, yeah, Spaniard, yeah, Brazilian, was healthy, yeah, he's really good. And Quantrell asked, what was his NIL commitment, you think? I do know for a fact that the ACL tear lowered his NIL commitment.
Exactly.
Yes, it's kind of, I don't want to say bargain hunting, but the Gamecocks had the amount of money to get it done. And a lot of times these Europeans are actually cheaper than Americans because, if they put their money aside and they want to go back overseas, that dollar goes a lot further outside of America than it does in America. And a lot of these kids, especially the young ones, just want to go get in a program. They want to get the off-season stuff. They want to get the weights. They want to get the strength and conditioning down, and they want to improve their game. And they look at a scholarship the way that players used to look at a scholarship back in the 70s and 80s. I'm here. I get free room and board, everything I need.
Yeah, and from that perspective, South Carolina is a great landing spot because you do have good facilities. You do have Power Four competition. You're going to get eyes on you, even if you're rehabbing and you're working. You're going to have the staff around you that put you in the best position. This is not like it's still an SEC program, Matt, at the end of the day. So you're still getting into a pretty good situation for rehabbing, learning, growing your game, and getting ready for what's next in 2027.
Yeah, you're probably going to have better orthopedic surgeons, physical therapists.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're going to get better medical treatment. You look at Hugo Lopez, he's a coach's son. He's just going to go 100 miles per hour all the time, going to play hard, get rebounds. I don't really think he's going to be a key player this year. Same thing with Nasir Hines, coming from community college. Didn't do much in community college, but one thing I will note with him is he went to the same high school as Marcus Johnson. So they play together, they know each other. And, I don't think Lamont Paris is ever going to turn away an Ohio kid that he thinks he can develop. And then Ford Wilder, he's going to be just a practice guy. Honestly, we'll see where his game, goes. Maybe he can earn a scholarship down the road. But yeah, so the basketball roster's set. We'll just go through it really quick with the guards. Corey Mincy, Shane Blakeney, Davion Hannah, Marcus Johnson, and Ford Wilder on the wing. Camden Heide, Grant Polk, and I'm going to throw Hayden Asimian on the wing. I think that's Lamont Paris' long-term vision for him. And then the bigs, you got Juan Ferdinand, who I love, Alexis Bielauskas, who played at Wisconsin last year, Jacob Neckis, who played at Duquesne, Hugo Lopez, and then Matthias, who we just talked about, won't be playing this year, and then Nasir Hines. Rob, just quickly, let's get some takeaways here. For me, I do think it's pretty light on guards. That's concerning.
Yeah. I agree. I agree there. I mean, I think a lot of this, Matt, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you may disagree. I think this hinges on Corey Mincy. I really do.
Yeah.
But especially if we talked to him after he committed. He was the first one in the boat. And he was pretty clear. Here's the plan for me. I'm going to run the show. I'm going to be the point. I'm going to get things where they need to go. We haven't seen that as much from him in the past. He's been a scorer. I think that his pull-up game is pretty good. And we'll see what he can do as a facilitator, right? I think that there's a lot of confidence in his ability to get out there and do that. But when you talk about this guard group and you have this the light nature of it, I think that he may need to be the one that's going to stir it. And then it's also going to be on Marcus Johnson. I think how quickly does he come along as a true freshman? I don't want to like isolate those two, but when I look at Shane Blakeney and Davion Hannah, I can see a little bit more of like how you fit into your role if you're one of those guys.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. When I look at Mincy, I understand that Lamont Paris is going to want to use him a little differently. And Marcus Johnson, I think, may be the guy along with him that is going to play the two. But if you need to spell Mincy, I can see that being a Marcus Johnson type of deal for a couple of possessions, bringing the ball up the court, getting them into their action, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I mean, your thoughts there with those four, because that's really the four you're counting on out back there.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, Shane Blakeney is not a point guard at all. Right. Corey Mincy is going to be making that transition. Davion Hannah has some ability there. He can be a creator. But like the guards are light.
Off ball though, because I want him to like be able to flourish a little more as a scorer and not having to facilitate. Hannah,
I've said this for a number of years now, and it goes back to when Talon Cooper was running the show. I mean, if you can just break a press and get into the sets, you're fine. Yeah. Just get across half court. I think about the guards, and yeah, they're light, but at the same time, I think that Lamont Paris made a conscious decision to not be out-rebounded ever in a basketball game with the amount of bigs that they got and the way that they're able to rebound. I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 or 4 Gamecocks average 5 or 6 rebounds a game. Some of these guys may be averaging 7, 8, 9, 10. want to thank EXO for popping in here and Cynical. We always appreciate you guys. Sorry, it's not Sunday night, but glad you're here. Yeah, I mean, when you look at my starting lineup right now is probably Corey Mincy at the point, and then Davion Hannah. I think it needs to be Davion Hannah, but don't discount Shane Blakeney. I was having this conversation with somebody today. He is a very plus defender, and when you play in the SEC and you have guys that can go get buckets, you need someone that can stop him. So he's going to get his minutes at small forward. It's Heidi or it's Blakeney. If you could combine Blakeney and Heidi, they'd be in the NBA. With that shooting ability and that defensive ability. So it might be a mix and match, play the matchups. I don't know if they could bring, both of them off the bench somehow. Maybe you have a Marcus Johnson step up, play the 2, Davion Hannah play the 3, and then, you have Heidi and Blakeney kind of as your super subs, right? Once the 12-minute mark happens in the game, it's the second official timeout. Maybe the 16-minute mark, you're getting some win for your starters, and the other team's doing the same thing. Kind of play like NBA does, that second unit.
Yep.
South Carolina's second unit will definitely be stronger than it was last year, which is going to help them, because there were times last year where, if Michi wasn't going off and they weren't hitting shots, it just got ugly quick. I don't see that happening this year. At power forward, I think it's going to be Alexis and then Juan Fernandez.
Agreed.
And I'm just telling you right now, man, I like the fact that Heidi and Polk can both come in and hit shots. I think Heidi needs to get 8 3-point attempts a game. I'm not being facetious.
I was going to ask the question, where do you think Grant Polk needs to be from a percentage standpoint from the 3-point range in order to really free up Camden Heidi? Because what if you put both of them in? And your spread, you're not going to be able to help a ton if you have a guy like Mincy has proven to shoot the ball pretty well. If you have those 3, where does Grant Polk need to grow into?
He's got to improve defensively first and foremost.
Sure.
What I'm saying is at least Heidi can throw his body around. He's played in big time games. Polk hasn't done that yet. Polk needs to be 38 to 42% from 3.
I was going to say 40, so we're right on it.
Yeah, so you really just got to stick him in a corner and dare the defense to leave him alone. Same with Heidi. Mm-hmm. But I do think with Alexis and Juan Fernandez and Corey Mincy, you're going to be able to play that pick and pop game at the top of the key. You're going to be able to do the pick and roll. You're going to make the defense collapse, make a decision. Yeah.
I'm imagining a horn set with Polk and Heidi both in the corners and run from there.
And then you have the Davion Hannah who can be break glass in case of emergency, kick it back out at the top of the key, let him get downhill, spread it out. That's exactly what Lamont Paris is trying to do.
Right.
And look, I'm also telling you, don't sleep on Jacob Nexus. I think he is a pretty good player. And if you go watch his highlights, he doesn't move like a lumbering big man.
Yeah.
So I do see some in the chat. Quantrell asked, was Talon Cooper just an anomaly? I don't think he was an anomaly. Remember, Talon Cooper was kind of a throw-in later in the process. It just so happened that everything clicked that year. BJ Mack was a big part of that. This pick and pop game that I'm talking about.
Yeah, he was.
That really helped. Jadis says that's what made Talon so good is Lamont's system. Absolutely. But you're going to have to – the Gamecocks have not been good against full court press since Talon Cooper played here. And when Talon Cooper was on the bench, they sucked at full court press as well, breaking it. So they'll have to figure it out. But overall, I think this roster is probably middle to, 3/4 of the SEC. I think that you can sneak up and bite somebody in the heel every once in a while, but I don't think you're going to have another 2-14 or 2-16 type season. This should be 6, 7, 8, 9 wins, and you just see where it goes from there with this team. Quickly, we'll hit baseball before we hit a break here, Rob.
Yeah.
We're going to do this really quick because JV has it kind of covered for you guys.
Like I said, 4-piece kids meal, not a 20-piece nugget here.
South Carolina's landed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players from Coastal. They've added another 5 players from Wake Forest, Mississippi State, Marshall, USC, Upstate. The thing that stands out to me is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pitchers, which obviously the Gamecocks needed. And with the new hitting coach coming in here, Hopefully, that approach will be something the Gamecock fans like, the grittiness, not just, trying to get on base, but also, hitting your pitch, bunting, do what you need to do. Everyone's talked about it, but, a lot of pitchers, you have a mix. You have 1, 2, 3 left-handers. They need some more lefties. Gamecocks lost 23 players to the portal. Just some notable guys in case y'all missed it in the news cycles here lately. Alex Valentin is at Arizona State now. KJ Scobie, Texas Tech. Zach Russell, Mississippi State. Logan Prisco, A&M. And then Reese Moore is at Nebraska. I think getting Tyler Pitzer back was huge, Rob. I was watching Mississippi State in their run and, almost taking down Georgia. And wouldn't it have been nice to have a Tyler Pitzer at the end of a game?
Absolutely. And you hate to lose Zach Russell in the process, but this is not how things work. This is me being facetious for anybody listening right now. But the trade of Zach Russell to get Tyler Pitzer back, you lose a good arm, but you get one back that you've seen work, and you've seen not just work here, but work at Mississippi State. So, I think it's a big feat. What's that?
And you've seen it work at the Cape and Cape Cod.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
JB kind of mentioned too, you ran through those and we look at it that you have a mix of guys who are going to have a couple of years of eligibility left versus the guys that they're taking that are seniors or are probably going to be 1 year and then draft guys. So I think that they're setting up, and I said this morning, this is a 2-3 year vision, and I think the fan base will do really well to catch that. That doesn't mean they're going to suck again in 2027. But I do think that when you zoom out just a tad and look at what the 2 to 3 year vision here is, you can kind of see, you can envision Omaha in 3 years as they're starting to build, and you can see the high school class bolstering behind some of this transfer portal group that's going to be around for a couple of years.
Yeah, and they're pushing hard on the 27 high school class as well in South Carolina. Just a couple of guys. We're not going to get into these guys, give you breakdowns or anything, but shortstop J.D. Stein from Wake Forest is visiting tomorrow.
It's a big one.
Connor Schaus from Texas Tech. He's an infielder. They'd love to see if they can get him. Luke Costello, it's the older brother of what's his name? Is it Tyler Costello? No, Andrew Costello.
Yes.
He raked last year at Wake. I don't think he's in the portal. I don't know if he's going to get in the portal, but there's definitely smoke there. And we're still waiting on the possible return of a couple of guys. Names Riley Goodman, Will Craddock, Brandon Stone, Jake McCoy. I'll just go ahead and tell you they're not going to be able to get all of them back. Even if they all wanted to come back, especially those pitchers, they're just going to have to figure out the roster because commitments and promises have been made. But lastly, go ahead.
I would just say the nugget on Craddock that this is one of the ones we'll give because JB said it multiple times. Good visit last week. He did visit South Carolina officially, which is kind of funny, but you have to do that under the new staff. And then but he is still taking visits to Georgia and Mississippi State. So power programs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to see Will Craddock come back. I think that if they could get one of Brandon Stone or Jake McCoy, that would be huge. Brandon Stone can be an inning eater, and then Jake McCoy, you want another lefty in the lineup. And I mean, if Gamecock fans and coaches had their preference, I mean, Brandon Stone might be ready to do a professional career, and for Jake McCoy, it's going to come down to where does he get drafted.
Yep, I agree.
So we'll see there. But let's hit a quick sponsor break. When we come back, we got to hit the official visit weekend for South Carolina football.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cards while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
JC Sherbert here had a brilliant idea that some good friends of mine in Florence have told me about. Next time you're having a wedding or an event or anytime you got to feed a bunch of people, talk to my friends over at Flavortown Eats and Events. That's right. It's a food truck / trailer, prepares the food fresh on site right there for you. No hassle. It's absolutely delicious. They'll come out, turnkey solution to feed the masses at your event. Go to their website right now, flavortownflow.com. That's flavortownflow.com. They have all the contact information you need, and they are a proud sponsor of the Late Night Gamecock Show and the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks!
Well, welcome back into the Late Night Gamecock Show. Again, Rob Williams is joining me as always, and I'm Matt Anderson, Late Night Gamecock. Reminder, the show is on Monday tonight. We're honoring Father's Day yesterday, but we'll be right back on Sunday of this upcoming week. So, the official visits over the weekend, Rob, we'll start with the 4-star wide receiver, Ivion Lewis from Richmond, Virginia, currently committed to Kentucky. I can tell you that I watched him at the recent 7-on-7 when his team came down.
Yep.
And the smile that he gave Mike Furry and the big bear hug that they shared, and the way Mike Furry, just worked with him, but also, just watched him on the sidelines, talked to him between snaps, all that kind of stuff. You could see the connection was real. And, I did some digging, and I think the Gamecocks were probably in on some wide receivers earlier that, made other decisions, and they circled back, and there's no love loss in the relationship. There's no hard feelings. It's a business. Everyone understands it. But they watched Lewis and Amari Patterson at 7-on-7. And look, I'm just going to tell you, Amari Patterson looked really good when he was at 7-on-7, and so did Ivion Lewis. And they made the decision after the official visit with Amari Patterson to move on, to not accept a commitment from Patterson. So I think that the writing is on the wall here, Rob, but I wanted to get your take on it.
Well, yeah. So you gave a great take on what happened on the field, right? And I was there too. I was able to see him, and you're right. It's explosive, and to say the least. Here's where I'll turn off the field. A couple months ago, when Ivion Lewis's original OV was supposed to be scheduled, it was in that May group. Now, obviously, that got moved around. He ended up coming in later because he went to Kentucky and so on and so forth. But I talked to one of his coaches at Huguenot there in Richmond prior to that weekend, and this is what he had to say about him off the field. He's a great kid, a great competitor who works really hard. He's big on family and wants an extension of home. And if that doesn't scream the culture at South Carolina, I don't know what does. I think that it is well established that family is important. We just got quotes from, well, I'm sure we'll get to this. We just had quotes from Nate Carson talking about how that was one of the most impressive things to him, is that not only the staffs, but the staff's families and the roster as a whole feels so close knit. I think that's a big selling point for Ivion Lewis as well.
Yeah, with Ivion, look, Kentucky's not giving up. He's a big part of their class. Why would they? But it would also be really good for the Gamecocks to get back in Richmond, Virginia. It'd be good, for those Virginia ties. There are some other Virginia kids that the Gamecocks are in on as well, not only in this class, but next year as well. Look, I feel good about their chances. A flip decision could be imminent. I'll put it that way, and we'll just see how it all plays out. But we always say in recruiting, nothing's ever 100% certain, and we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. So the next, this is all 4 and 5 stars that are on campus this weekend. So, you go reel some of these in, some of these recent stings on the recruiting trail will hurt a little bit less. It'll be a little softened. But 4-star defensive lineman Marquise Evans out of Birmingham, Alabama. And yes, I'm calling him a defensive lineman instead of an edge, because that is the way the Gamecocks are recruiting him. He went on record with Gamecock Central. I can't remember if it was Chris or Wes, but said he's no longer 235 pounds like he's listed on 3. He's up to 265 pounds, 6'5". And one of the interesting things that I found out, Rob, is that the Gamecocks are the only school in his top 5 that are recruiting him as a defensive tackle. And what do we know the Gamecocks desperately need in this class? A second defensive tackle to go with John Archer. And, maybe he might be more developmental because he is only 265 right now. But if they see that future in him, and I'll remind everybody that Travian Robertson came in as a defensive end. He left as a defensive tackle and played in the NFL for quite a number of years, 3, 4, 5 years in the NFL. So, Rob, your thoughts on him and, where you think the Gamecocks are right now?
Yeah, I thought about this going into the weekend, Matt, and I questioned it a little bit, but I said kind of what you said earlier. You never count anything out when you're going into an official visit, and I think that the Shane Beamer and his staff are second to none, if we're being honest, in terms of I would never count them out. If you're going into a visit weekend, there's a chance, and I think they made a lot of ground here with Marquise Evans. Going into the weekend, there was a heavy lean there, but I think that they are set apart because they're recruiting him as a defensive tackle. And if he's already up to 265 in high school, that tells me that he has the ability to put on even more when he gets into a college system. I know that's a little bit cliche thing to say, but it's true. When you lift with Luke Day or any college strength coach, and when you're eating that nutrition plan, your body, they're going to find ways to maximize your frame. And this guy has the frame to move inside. And what I like about that, Matt, is they continue to recruit different body types in there. This year is going to be a great example of who's on the roster. I think they have 5, 6 guys that can really move around on the inside of the defensive line and do some different things. You have your pluggers, you have your slimmer, more pass rushy guys that are going to get in between there. So this is interesting to me because it really does give them somebody who has that edge background and really is going to be able to get into the backfield. I think is going to be his mindset. And if he's a little on the small side, I don't hate that throwing it into the mix.
No, I think you'll see this guy at 295 in no time.
For sure.
Maybe give it 12, 18 months. He'll be 295, 300, and he'll be a hoss. We'll see. Anytime there's a kid from Alabama, you always worry about Alabama and Auburn. And like Rob mentioned, Auburn was up there in his recruitment as well. But what do mommies and daddies like to hear when they take their kid on an official visit? Family. We'll get you here. You'll be able to watch your son play. It's not that far. There's planes. So we'll see what happens. I think the Gamecocks made a move. We just got to see where the next 24, 72 hours lead once you get home and you're back in Alabama and you're starting to talk to people about, hey, I might want to go to South Carolina. Well, Alabama folk don't take kindly to that. So we'll see. I'm going to throw this one directly to you, Rob. Nate Carson from Irmo, 4-star offensive guard. Here's what I know, and I'll throw it to Rob. It could be the Gamecocks. It could be Clemson. It could be Georgia. It could be Colorado on any day of the week. I don't think it's going to be Tennessee. But, Rob, just tell us what you know about Carson.
Yeah, I've talked to him several times, and I think it continues to move around, okay? We're supposed to have an interview with him for Four Quarter Friday that will release after his commitment. I'm not putting that in concrete or anything. I've got it in a nice, very strong pin, though. I might have to break out the whiteout. We'll see. But yeah, it has moved, Matt. That's been the deal. He's always had good things to say about South Carolina. Even when he took his Clemson official visit and he named them his leader, I talked to him 2 days later, and he was like, yes, Clemson, Georgia, South Carolina. And he had good things to say about all three. Then he goes on the Colorado visit, and then he just finished up here at South Carolina. I think it's one of those where it's really paramount. We're going to say this about Josh Dobson, I'm sure, in a minute too, but it's really important that South Carolina was last with Nate Carson. There's a high level of familiarity with he and his staff. And just from a prospect standpoint, I think he is that nasty offensive lineman type that they're really going after. And just so happens this one's in their backyard. So I think it fits. And if they continue to sell that, there's going to have to be a strong push all the way through the end for Carson.
Yeah, and he'll make his commitment known on July 3rd. So,
correct.
We're getting, Rob, I did hear you say this today, that July 3rd is kind of turned into like
It's
a
hot.
like a summer national signing day. Like Rob said, I truly don't think he knows where he wants to go, but I can tell you that a lot of times in these sorts of recruitments, it's leaning on family, it's leaning on your high school coaches, and you know what you have if you decide to stick around local. Everything else is a gamble unless he's certain. I could definitely see him pick South Carolina, and but to Rob's point, none of these schools are going to give up on July 3rd with Nate Carson. So we'll hit two of these guys here at the end. These are the last two official visits. We'll start with 4-star DB Davion Jones from Charlotte, North Carolina. This is another one that the Gamecocks got the last official visit for. He's already visited Auburn, Georgia, Indiana, and LSU. The longer these things go in the summer, when these kids take these multiple visits, and you get to the fifth one and it's the last one, to Rob's point, it does matter. I know that the Gamecocks had an excellent pitch for him. He's a guy that's everyone's tight with Torian Gray, the Torian recruits, because he makes you a priority and tells you how he can develop you. But this is somebody the Gamecocks feel can play anywhere in the secondary, and they will allow him to start anywhere in the secondary if he selects the Gamecocks. And he just has the mold that Torian Gray really develops well. He's supposed to make his choice. This is always fun, Rob. He's going to make his choice this Sunday, but he won't publicly reveal it until July 26th. So you're going to have about 3 weeks of a player sitting on it. Hopefully, the coaches will know which way he's going. But what I would say is, watch the Gamecocks board and how it shapes after Sunday and see what happens. The last one is 5-star Joshua Dobson, from South Carolina his entire life, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina to be in a better high school program, play against better competition. This is the big one, Rob. And I know that, last summer you weren't at camp with me, but there are 3 players that I've seen at 7-on-7s in summer camp that I just think the Gamecocks have to find a way to land. And Joshua Dobson's one of them. The other one was Donovan Murph, and then the Texas quarterback that just came through. I said they need to go get that guy, and I'm blanking on his name right now. It's like Zeigerman or Zeidelman or something like that.
Yeah.
But Josh Dobson's just a freak. I watched him numerous times run from one sideline to the other to either intercept a pass, deflect a pass, or just make the quarterback throw the ball into the dirt. He's an elite kid. This has really been a Gamecock and A&M battle for a long time. Michigan's jumped into the picture. It's always weird, man, when you start hearing Texas A&M might be fading when they've been in on him for so long. Texas just picked up a 5-star defensive back as well. I don't know if A&M was recruiting that kid as well. I know they were recruiting another 5-star DB. But the Gamecocks did everything possible this past weekend to make him feel like South Carolina is home. I know the NIL number, Gamecocks probably have the best NIL package. They have, open starting spots. I mean, this is a kid that, the Gamecocks have a real chance here for it. And it won't because of NIL if they don't get him.
Well, I think that the biggest thing, again, broken record, but with Davion Jones and with Josh Dobson, you're last. So you're going to have that lasting impression. Both transferred into Huff, so they don't really – they know each other, but how deep do the roots run? I don't know. There's been rumors that they're a package deal or that they want to kind of be together. I don't know how serious that is, but they are kind of attached at the hip right now, and they do kind of
wear friendship bracelets.
Travel to like this. That they do kind of run together, and so South Carolina being in it for both of them. Obviously, the quote that went viral that Davion Jones had, which was, "I view South Carolina as DBU." That is that bodes well, I think, in a lot of people's minds. We'll see how this thing shakes out, but I do think that there is reason to have some level of positivity with both of those guys, Matt. Yeah, it's not a done deal in any stretch with either of them, and even if they commit, it's not like we've said, it's not a done deal. Wait until the ink's on the paper. But South Carolina is still firmly in it with both of those players, as well as Nate Carson, as well as Ivion Lewis, who is committed. So and Marquise Evans. Everybody that we talked about, they're well in the game, still working it. So, like we said, guys, just be patient with this class. It's gonna shape up.
Yeah, nothing's ever 100% when you're talking about a 5-star DB that literally everyone in the country wants. He's done his due diligence. He's done his research. He's been to A&M numerous times. He's been to Michigan once or twice now. He's been to South Carolina probably 20 times, honestly. But I first heard about 2 months ago the Gamecocks might actually be the leader. And that's when a lot of A&M smoke was going around.
Yeah.
And then Michigan jumped in, and the worry was that Michigan was going to drop an NIL package that the Gamecocks couldn't compete with. That's not the case. So we'll see where it all shakes out. But Dobson, he's the one. He's the one you really want in that DB class.
And it's something.
He's
There's something
a
to be said about
crown jewel.
momentum. There's something to be said about momentum in recruiting as well. And Dobson is the one that really kicks off momentum for this class, which is weird to say because we're so deep into the recruiting cycle. But we've talked a lot about too that there's a more than a handful of flippable candidates, Matt, when we get into the actual season. If Shane Beamer and this team prove to win on the field and secure themselves for next season, I think there's a lot of guys that could flip. Josh Dobson getting in before we get to that point, I think really gives this coaching staff all the momentum that they need to then package that with, hey, look what we're doing on the field to go get some of these other guys that they have missed on to this point.
Well, Rob, you're reading my mind here because, I said it a couple minutes ago, if the Gamecocks are able to go 4 out of 5 on, the guys that were just on campus, now all of a sudden you have, 4 and 5 stars added to your class. Then you start going back to like the puzzle pieces and the Friends Forever from the 2007 class where, we're going to be the first ones to do it. And then, you start getting Trey Segura in on a visit. You circle back to Nate Kamba and Antoine McCoy, an Amari Fountain, a Gerard Albright. Looking at the, how the board's set up, this is just me. I did this pretty quickly earlier today. I really think this is the board. If I'm missing somebody, y'all let me know. You can find us on the message boards. You can find us on our Twitter handles, all that jazz. But, I think at running back, it's probably Trey Segura or bust right now unless another prospect comes up. Yeah. Avion Lewis is probably the only wide receiver they're really seriously considering right now. Offensive line, Stafford Willis, Nate Carson. Linebacker, Jackson Ross. The Randall kid that just committed to Miami who took an official visit to South Carolina. Defensive end, they just offered 2 new 27s, and Jaden Brody and Josiah Sturdivant, KJ Green, Chris Whitehead. They're going to keep circling the waters there on those two. Marquise Evans, the defensive tackle we talked about. Nate Kamba just talked about. Antoine McCoy. The secondary though is where it gets really interesting because you still have a Kelvin Millington out there, a Josh Dobson, a Davion Jones, and Aiden Wiggins at Burns, and Amari Fountain, a Gennard Albright. And, you can see this class quickly shoot up to a top 10 class if things fall right on the field. And, I think South Carolina is committed to running the race with these guys. They've invested so many resources, so much time into them, and had at one point or another, they were in all of these kids' top twos. Throw Frederick Ards out there as well. They were either number 1 or number 2 for essentially all the guys on this list, except for maybe Marquise Evans. And I think they're firmly in the top 2 right now. So there'll be other names that pop up. There always are. And, Rob will be talking about these kids on 4-Quarter Friday and, when the Gamecocks offers, but especially these South Carolina kids, there's a lot of talent in this state. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on, Rob, we're going to close this show out with this last little segment. And this is a bit of a teaser. So we're not going to go too deep into it. But, starting the next week or two, it's time for us to start going through the Gamecock football schedule. So not necessarily giving our predictions, but talking about the teams, talking about how these games might go. So when we start that, we're going to hit 2 teams on the schedule per week. It's just going to be SEC opponents and Clemson. So we'll end with Clemson. That last week will actually be our Gamecock prediction episode where we'll talk about the season, our final, win-loss record, but not bust. Bust is like fantasy football, but big predictions on player X might throw for X yards or, blah, blah, blah. But before we do that, we're going to do the teaser. So, Rob, I know it's been talked about. I don't think you and I have had this conversation yet. But what are the 3 most important games this season for the Gamecocks and why? We can go alternate, or you can do all 3.
If I'm going through the schedule, we can go that way, Matt. The first one for me is at Alabama.
Okay.
And just because I think that there's going to be a scare with this Mississippi State game. Don't get it twisted. But you open up with Kent State, Towson, Mississippi State. In theory, that's going to be a 3-0 start. You can put the country on notice if you go get that Bama game, and they've had Alabama on the ropes 2 years in a row. Who's your first one?
My first one's actually Mississippi State.
Okay, that's fair.
There are a number of games this year, Rob, that you just can't lose.
I love Kamario Taylor.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's a beast. I mean, you can't lose that game and still have the season that you want. So I think after 2 relative cupcakes, you better have Peak ready. You better have Stewart ready. You better be firing on all cylinders because – Mississippi State's your warm-up SEC game. And if you can't beat Mississippi State going on the road to Tuscaloosa, good effing luck. So that's my first one, and you picked Alabama, so we hit 2 on the schedule. Let's go to your second one.
Yeah, my second one's Tennessee, because we haven't seen Tennessee in a couple of years, and our friend Chris Marler seems to be really high on the Vols this year. He's got me convinced a little bit that they've got something. And, I feel like they're going to kind of be middle of the road. The question for me, Matt, is at the quarterback position. They don't know who's going to play. And either way, it's going to be an inexperienced young guy. I think they've got a pure pocket passer, and then they've got an absolute stud dude in Faison Brandon. It's just a matter of how quickly can he come on. But I'm interested to see what happens with that one. It's at Williams-Brice. History says that should be a game for the Gamecocks to win.
Tennessee has always been one of my favorite games on the schedule, so I always have that one circled. I just go back to those years of the Orange Crush where it was, Florida, Clemson, and Tennessee. My next one is actually a road game, and it's Florida. We know there's a lot of stadium renovation going on in Gainesville. Gainesville can be a sleepy crowd to start a game. It gets rowdier as the game goes on, but I'm looking at it right now, and, you get past Mississippi State. Maybe you have a loss in your schedule against Alabama. You should beat Kentucky. But that Florida game on the road is, that true road test where you should win it. You could win it. You probably will win it if, the talent on both rosters is what I think it is. Yeah. So you have to win that game. And that, leads right into the Tennessee game you just talked about at home, and what an environment that would be. So I did Mississippi State and at Florida to start, and you have done Alabama and Tennessee. What's your last one?
Okay, I'm going to set Clemson aside because I feel like it's its own animal, and I could talk about that one easily. But the one that I'm going to mention here, Matt, is Georgia at home. This is weird. Georgia at the end of the year is weird. Okay, let's call it what it is. We're not used to seeing them at that point in the year. I think this Georgia team is immensely talented. I don't think this is a huge game in terms of South Carolina has to win this game, Matt, but I want to see the gap closure with a top playoff team for South Carolina in a year when we feel like the roster is there, when they can go compete, when the sentiment was, hey, 2 years ago we should have been in the playoff. Record kept us out. Referees in the LSU game, not finishing against Alabama, all this, that, and the third. Then last year, a down year, but Shane Beamer says, hey, next year we're going to be sitting right here waiting to see if we're in the college football playoff, meaning right there on the line. So if the goal is to be in the college football playoff, which I think it is, I want to see how they match up with a team that I know belongs there, and that's Georgia at the end of the year.
I love that pick. I thought about the Georgia game as well. I thought about the Clemson game. Obviously, that one has to pop into mind.
Sure.
But I'm kind of going back to the well with where I went with Mississippi State, because you look at, the last 5 games of the season at Oklahoma, Texas A&M, at Arkansas, Georgia, and at Clemson. You got to go 2-3 at worst in those games. So I'm picking Arkansas because you go all the way essentially across the country. Arkansas is probably not going to be very good. You need to have, kind of like I talked about that Mississippi State, like SEC warm-up, you need to go into that Georgia home game, which is probably going to be at night, with your fans behind you. The season's still playing for it, potentially playing for maybe an SEC, conference championship appearance, maybe playing for the college football playoffs, maybe just playing for a New Year's Day bowl. But if you lose that Arkansas game on the road, all of those three things I just mentioned are not going to happen for you this year.
I love the juxtaposition of how we just did that. You basically isolated games that South Carolina should win. Basically, win the games that you're favored to win. And I picked, for the most part, maybe not Tennessee, but probably
the layups.
The ones where you need to punch up a little bit. And who are you going to go get, which tells you a little bit about how I'm probably counting my chickens before they hatch on those other games.
Yeah, I mean, well, I said it was a teaser. It's a teaser for a reason. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, man, because we're getting so close to that time when I start digging in. Once I get that Phil Steele magazine, once I start, mining all the depth charts on On3, reading all the message boards, and I start looking at who the transfers in were. Are they, if this guy was a stud somewhere else, is he on the two deep? Because if he's not on the two deep, that means that there's a pretty daggum good player ahead of them.
Yep.
Or, are they starting or, whatever it is. So I'm excited for it, Rob. I mean, football season cannot get here soon enough. I talked to, a friend of mine the other day, and he's just not ready for football season. He's like, my mind's not even close to being prepared. He's like, and normally he was like, I'm 120 days out. I'm starting to think about it. But I think, you touched on it, Rob, with some of your games here. There is some optimism. There's more optimism than I thought there would be coming off 5-7. Maybe not in the recruiting world, but the Gamecock fans they're just saying, wow, we got an offensive coordinator now. Wow, he's had success other places. He's got Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor. Like going back to the video game, Rob, they've seen what Lenore Sellers can do. Roll out to the right side and throw a deep ball to Nick Harbor for a touchdown. It looks easy. Maybe this offensive coordinator can figure it out. So, those are our games. And like I said, we'll start getting to that over the next week or two. I do want to touch on one thing. Ryan here in the chat, and Ryan, I don't disagree with you, my man. The things trending right now, probably not a top 20 class, but I would say the Gamecocks will be closer to top 20 than they'll be top 40. I think they're in the mid 30s right now. The class will get better. But if you throw a 5-star in there, you throw 3 or 4 more 4-stars in there just from the official visit this past weekend, and then you go circle the wagons and get some high 3-stars, some more 4-stars, you'd be surprised at how fast that can rise up. So, by no means am I predicting a top 10 class, and we'll see what happens there. But, we'll see what happens. Actually, Rob, this is a question for you before we get out of here. Damien is asking if you think the Gamecocks will try and flip Aiden Gibson, or are they all or nothing on Segura at this point?
I think it's Trey Segura, and I don't think they're going to go after Gibson at this point. I have nothing to indicate to me that would be the case.
It's really hard
from both sides.
Yeah,
like from the Gibson camp and from the South Carolina camp.
I'll just add to that, when you let a kid go somewhere else and don't fight for him, they remember that. So not to say they couldn't get back in the game, but I don't see it happening. And then last one here, Rob.
Boomer Sooner.
Yeah.
Boomer Sooner.
Okay. Boomer Sooner for me as well. Greg asked, you're up pulling for North Carolina or Oklahoma. Boomer Sooner for me too. I want to see that SEC College World Series record stay sterling. But so I'll be locked into that. Normally I'm running right over to Rob's show, but Rob, I was even looking at the clock and I was like, I gotta get Rob out of here.
That's funny.
Yeah, we're able to go a little bit long, but Rob, go have a good rest of the night, man. I know that you got a lot going on in your house tonight, so just enjoy it, and we will catch up, I'm sure, this week, and then we'll be back on Sunday night.
Perfect.
See you, everybody. Bye.